Welcome to the Mississippi State University College of Business Family Business Education Initiative. And this session is on increasing sales through pricing and other marketing strategies, a long title, with Dr. Mike Breazeale. Good to have you here, Mike. Good to see you.
Thank you, Jeffrey.
I'm going to call you out because the very first thing you say is, and the title of your presentation is Increasing Sales Through Pricing and Other Marketing Strategies, and your first slide says, don't focus on increasing sales.
It does.
That sounds like a contradiction.
The more you try to focus on increasing your sales, probably the less successful you're going to be at a time like this one. And really, probably most of the time.
Okay. Why is that?
Well, I teach a lot of sales courses, and really marketing is right now about building relationships with customers. And you do that by creating long-term value for them. You don't get long-term value out of always going for that big sale, that next sale. If you're not satisfying customers' needs and providing value for them, then they're not going to be with you long-term. They're going to be easy to pick off by somebody else. So as soon as you start seeming to come across as, I just really want to boost my sales, they sense that. And then you're not working for them anymore, you're working for you.
So what you're saying is the sale itself might be a byproduct of the relationship,
Absolutely,
right? So what you want to work on getting right is the relationship, because odds are whatever you're selling, whatever that widget is, somebody else is selling it too, and there might not be a big difference
For sure.
between the two.
Or at least a perceived difference anyway. And so a lot of people think, well, then price is going to be my difference. That's what I'm going to do, is I'm going to be the cheapest one, and then they'll come to me. But people tend to associate value with price and quality with price. And so when you start cutting your price, that cuts the impression that your product, whether it's a service or a good, actually provides value and is of quality.
And I don't think anyone wants to get into that death spiral race to the bottom on price. Because
nobody wins a price war. Yeah.
Interesting. So you say it's all about value.
Right.
And I guess research might suggest that people are willing to pay a little bit more if they perceive the value. But what does value mean?
Value is a pretty simple equation, but it becomes interesting for a marketer to perceive it. Value is all of the benefits you get from a product, minus all of the costs of it. But that's not just what you pay for it. It's the things you give up. It's I always use the example of a sports car for my students. It costs a lot to buy a sports car, but it also costs a lot to insure it and to repair it. And all of those go into the costs that you associate with the car. The value, of course, isn't just that it gets you from point A to point B, or you wouldn't need a sports car, but the way it makes you look, the way it makes you feel. So that's the trade-off that people make. If it makes them feel like they're getting more than they're giving up, then there's value, and that's the value right there. The interesting thing from a marketer perspective is that it is entirely a customer perception. If they don't perceive value, there is no value.
All right, so you could be telling them all the, yes, look at the value in this, but at the end of the day, the end user, the customer, has to see and appreciate the value.
Absolutely, they have to believe it.
So if you're going to do that, what do you have to get right?
Everything.
Okay.
So no pressure. But I did come up with a list of things that I think, especially at a time like this one, and what I realized when I was putting this list together is that it's not just about right now. All of the things that I'm suggesting businesses do not only comes from my own 25 years of business experience before I got my PhD, but it also comes from looking at what works all the time. This unusual situation we find ourselves in right now with COVID actually increases the chances that these things will work. And it creates a situation in which you can provide value just by being there for your customers. And so a lot of research suggests that a service failure can be a good thing for your business if you repair it correctly, because your customers tend to be more loyal after you have appropriately fixed a failure even than before. So you can mess up, and if you fix it right, they like you more than they did even before the failure.
Interesting, because they had to like you on some level to buy your product or seen the value. So then you have an issue with that product, and how they respond to that could increase the value
Absolutely.
Interesting.
So this COVID situation is almost a built-in failure that you as a business didn't have anything to do with. But the way you handle it can absolutely increase their loyalty to you during and after the situation. So you asked what to do.
Right.
One of the first things you want to do is to always make sure with pricing that anything you do is ethical, legal, above board. A lot of pricing is regulated, but even for that's not. You don't want to be perceived as gouging your customers. And you certainly don't want to be perceived as taking advantage of an opportunity to get more money out of your customers. So increasing your prices right now, not a good idea. Keep a long-term view of that relationship. Just like I was saying, you're in it for the long haul with your customers. It's a lot more expensive to go out and replace those customers every business cycle. So you want to keep the ones you have, and the best way to do that is to focus on their long-term success. That way they're still in business and they still appreciate the role that you're playing in keeping them in business.
Makes sense.
Focus instead of on pricing on value-focused messaging. You want to tell them the things they need to think about to realize that there's value in your product. Being transparent about your pricing is one of those things, but when I say talk about value, talk about the other things they're getting from you, and maybe even give them more in terms of service, but you're not giving them more product so that you're not increasing necessarily your costs. You can create some flexible pricing around the typical pricing you have in terms of changing your terms. To allow them to have a little bit more time to pay.
You're seeing the automobile dealers do that right now.
Yes, absolutely, and that's a really smart idea because, like we said, people tend to remember the businesses that take care of them and that treat them right. And so after this is over, when you go back to the standard terms that they expect, they're not annoyed by that. They know that you're doing something for them. And that ties into that last point there. Make sure you've got somebody in your business or in your organization who is responsible specifically for this type of customer care. If you're a small enough business, reach out to your customers individually and ask them, what do you need from us right now? We know everybody's struggling. What can we do to help? That goes a long way.
Well, and on the other side, don't do these bad things.
Right.
Don't do this wrong. What else?
And they're almost a flip of kind of the other ones. They're going to sound kind of familiar. Don't take advantage of your customers. And don't be perceived as taking advantage of the customers is really the important key there. If they feel like you are trying to profit from a terrible situation, you don't win at all. Assuming that any problem can be fixed with a cheaper price is a really quick road to a price war. That's never going to work. A lot of the times your customers will tell you, even if you ask them, what can we do to help you? Well, money's pretty tight right now. And I tell my students, an inexperienced salesperson, an inexperienced business owner thinks, well, let me cut my price for you then. No, that's not what they're saying. They're not even saying cut your price. They're saying money's tough for me right now. So how can I help them with that problem? That doesn't involve cutting my price because people tend to associate price with quality. As soon as the price goes down, they think my product is worth less. And they tend to expect me to be able to do that afterward as well.
Okay.
So we don't want to do that for sure. Slashing prices without considering your other options is certainly something that you don't want to do. There may be times that you can unbundle things, or maybe you start bundling things to create some extra value. That would be the way I would play with the pricing on that to try to help your customers as much as you can. And I had the point there as well, not to rely on old pricing research. This is a unique situation. We don't have a lot of research that tells us exactly what customers are going to do during and after circumstances like these. So you really need to pay attention to what's happening right now. And that's tough to do for a lot of business people who like to look at spreadsheets and say, well, this is what we did last year. So,
well, and some folks might view this as an opportunity where you kind of smell the blood in the water and you go after your competition's customers, but you say that has some risk as well.
It does, partly in looking predatory, which you don't want to do, but also because the kind of customer that you get during that time when blood is in the water is not the one you're going to have a long-term relationship with. If they're willing to jump ship to come to you because you've got something extra special right now, then they may not be the customer that sticks around. They're more of a fair weather friend kind of customer. And so I think it's a great time to prove your value to customers who haven't figured you out yet, who are someone else's customers. But don't be perceived, at least, as going after them.
Yeah, so then there are those companies out there who have become successful, very successful, because they have figured it out and they're doing their thing and they go belly up. So
Right.
talk about those.
Well, I love talking about these, especially this first one on my slide here, Blockbuster. You know, I owned video stores for 25 years. And Blockbuster constantly was trying to put me out of business because I was a big store, a chain in Jackson. And they tried to buy me several times, and I never would sell to them. So they always told me, well, we'll just put you out of business then. And I actually survived longer than they did in my market. So talking about Blockbuster is a great example of a company that had what I call marketing myopia, meaning they don't really pay attention to changing circumstances and they're not willing to innovate quickly enough. Blockbuster should have been Netflix of today. Could have been Amazon. They had the funds, they had the money, they had all the resources. They didn't take advantage of it. Netflix offered to sell to Blockbuster for $50 million right at the end of the dot-com bubble, and Blockbuster said, oh no, we've got this.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, I look at the list, I see BlackBerry, and they have had some fits and starts of trying to remake, relaunch, rebrand, and throw themselves out there, but they had not gotten traction.
They've not. They, I think, misunderstood what their value was. They absolutely could have been successful now, but they refused to adapt to the touchscreen. They felt like their unique selling proposition was their keyboard. And because of that, they died on that hill. Their customers were not willing to forgive the other things they couldn't do just to have that keyboard.
But they had loyalists. I mean, there are still some folks
Absolutely.
out there that are just sad BlackBerry's gone. I mean, they had
yeah.
a very loyal following, which
Yeah.
is important.
Well, remember they called it Crackberry for a long time because it was pretty ubiquitous. They
right.
had a
Well,
good shot.
So on the other hand, we've got some companies that have managed to pivot and take care of make a change.
For sure, and the ones that I put up here are actually the ones that did this in a time like this one, which could have been the end of them. Netflix started out at the end of the dot-com bubble, right at the end of it. And so they realized pretty quickly, gosh, we've got a great idea here, but things around us are falling apart. What are we going to do? So they did offer to sell to Blockbuster, and Blockbuster, fortunately for them, said no. So they tried to figure out what they could do differently, and they adapted. They adapted to the streaming very quickly. Now, a very small part of their business is actually mailing DVDs out to people because they said, well, if we're going to survive, and now we're committed to, we have to, then we're going to adapt to the times around us and give our customers what they value. Any company that has survived and done well, Microsoft actually came into being in 1975 at the almost end, still really in the middle of an 18-month recession. No reason that they should have been successful other than they were delivering a product that customers really needed at the time. They just didn't know they needed it. And so they sold the value, and they had to teach that value. And that's what a lot of selling is teaching your customers why your product is the right solution for them. If you don't believe it, then you can't convince them. And if you know it's not the right solution, don't try to sell it to them. Help them solve another problem, or tell them, I can't help you right now, but I'd love it if you came back to me at a time when we could. Warby Parker, a great example of a company right now that's taking full advantage of the fact that people are willing to shop online for things that maybe in the past we wouldn't have been willing to, things that we consider more kind of experience products. They've got a great app that lets you try on glasses in the app, and because of that, they're growing so fast right now that it's really fun to watch them and see a company that's using pretty simple technology. I mean, it's basically a Snapchat filter, right? But it's allowing them to sell their product, and not even at a premium. That is one thing I didn't include on my list that I will mention is that because people associate prices with quality, I tell my students, you never want to cut your price. There are very few reasons to cut your price. Sometimes you even want to increase your price. Right now is not that time, but afterward it might be. If you've sold the value to your customers enough during this period, I would say think about a price increase after all of this passes. We've proven ourselves to you. You know how much we're worth now.
Well, with the caveat being the price has to be the right price
Absolutely.
to begin with. I mean, it's got to make sense from your cost
Right.
of goods sold and blah, blah, blah.
Right. And that's where the transparency comes in. Right. Your customers need to understand that you are a business, you're trying to support yourself and your family as well. But if I can help you while I'm doing that, then it's a win-win.
Well, thanks for sharing those tips. It really comes down to value, and the value is not just the price, it's the quality of the goods, and it's also customer service. I mean, all that added together is, I guess, value.
For sure, and it's always a customer perception. So if your customer doesn't perceive the value, there is no value.
Well, we value you, and folks, if you'd like more information on this, you can contact Dr. Breazeale. We'll put his information up on the screen for you. Mike, it's always good to see you, and I appreciate you sharing this, and hope certainly that it helps businesses out there that are trying to wade through marketing during this very, very unique time.
Sure. I had somebody email me the other day, and in the message they said, I guess you're glad you don't own businesses anymore. And a part of me thought, well, yeah, there's certainly things I don't have to deal with right now, but it's an exciting time. And any time like this is a time for growth. And so I kind of miss a little bit of that strategizing and figuring out how do I come out of this better. So I'm glad I could help, Jeffrey. Thank you.
Appreciate it. And we hope you have found this session helpful, and as you continue to try to grow your business during this very unusual time.